She walked out the door one warm evening in 1969 and never came back. That is the truth of it. My name is Margaret. People call me Maggie. I am 74 now, and I have held this night inside me for more years than I can count. Before I go any further, tell me where you are watching from. Type your city, your country, America, Europe, Africa, Asia. When you say it, I stop feeling like I speak into empty walls. Your words are the only light I ask for tonight. Look at her picture on the screen, the faded photograph with edges worn like a prayer card. That is Anna. 16, dark hair that curled under at the neck, eyes that looked straight at you, honest and a little stubborn. If you see a small freckle near her left cheek, that was her. My hands have kept a copy of this photo folded in my Bible for decades. Seeing her again is like opening a wound and finding it still tender. We lived in a town where everyone knew your business before. You had the chance to say hello. A place of porches and shop fronts, where the deli on Main had one coffee pot that never seemed to run dry, and the church bell still called us all on Sunday. People worked at the mill or at the feed store. Some drove the long highway to the city and came back tired at night. The world felt round and safe back then. That was the lie we told ourselves. Anna belonged to a family that kept to themselves mostly. Not poor by the sharpest measure, but not rich either. Her father worked the mill 10-hour days, hands big as the storybooks said men should have. Her mother patched and sewed and kept their small house tidy. Anna helped where she could, running errands, sweeping out the store, humming under her breath while she worked. She had a laugh that lifted the afternoon like a ribbon. She loved music. I remember her humming Beatles songs while she wrapped loaves or stacked tins. She had notebooks with scribbles about leaving, moving to some place with taller buildings and kinder people. She would speak of places like Chicago with a dreamy look. We would all smile and tell her patience was a virtue. Who among us imagined patience would become a trap? The day she left, that day none of us speak of without our mouths going dry, began like any other. The heat leaned heavy over the asphalt. The men joked about the harvest. Somebody left the radio on at the feed store playing a song that drifted down the street. Anna wore her best dress that afternoon, the one with the small collar. She tied her hair back plain, not coquettish, and kissed her mother on the cheek before stepping onto the porch. Her mother pressed a small brown paper bag into her hand, a few slices of bread, maybe a pie slice wrapped in wax paper. Simple things then felt like treasure. She walked toward the house on Maple Lane, where the family had asked her to babysit. Children there were used to Anna's easy presence. Their father, a bank clerk, trusted her like he trusted his own ledger. No one wondered at the time that Anna carried no purse on her arm that night. Her shoes knocked lightly on the sidewalk in a rhythm we would replay in our heads for years. And somewhere down the block, a dog barked 3 times and stopped. We noticed small things later that at first seemed nothing. Her friend Ruth said Anna had been quiet that afternoon. She seemed like she had something on her mind, Ruth told me later. And we all leaned in, hungry for any detail we could hold. Her father returned from the mill at dusk and hummed the same tune he always did. Her mother set an extra plate out, expecting Anna's laugh to fill the kitchen. But night came and the laugh did not. That night, when the house on Maple Lane was still, someone discovered her shoes by the living room couch. A single boot near the lamp, the other at an odd angle, like a person had stood and never finished the step. Her father said, "She'll be back," as if words could return what had gone. Her mother, hands shaking, found the small paper bag by the sink untouched. The porch light burned against the dark like a small, fierce star, but the light didn't save her. Do you know the particular sound of a town waking in alarm? I do. People who had never shouted before did so then. Men grabbed flashlights and went down dirt roads. Mothers opened doors and called into the night. Someone said a stranger's car had been seen idling by the corner near the diner. Someone else swore they'd seen a figure in the shadows by the riverbank. Rumors begin as shelter and too often end as knife edges. That night, the air tasted of rain even though none fell, and every little noise turned suspect. I remember standing on my own porch, the photograph of Anna clutched in my hand. the paper-thin image warm from being held. I kept whispering her name like a prayer, Anna, Anna. It felt foolish and necessary all at once. That's the truth of it. We did what we knew to do. We searched. Men pointed flashlights into hedges. Boys ran with the reckless hope of heroes. The police came, calm and blank-faced, writing notes and asking the same patient questions. The town that had once felt so small now felt too small to contain the ache. Even in those first days, I could see how the town shifted. People who had waved yesterday stopped waving. The world, as if embarrassed, learned to keep its distance. Mothers watched daughters like hawks. Fathers stood too close at the fence, as if proximity alone could keep evil at bay. Shops closed earlier. Conversations stopped falling to the easy topics of weather and harvest. We groped for explanations and found only silence. There are small memories that do not leave you. I can tell you the exact pattern of light on the town hall steps the evening Anna vanished. I can tell you which radio station the grocery store left playing. These are little anchors that bring the night back like film that will not stop. Mostly I remember faces, 1,000 small faces, each one marked by the shock of realizing our safe story had been interrupted. We did not know then what cold cases would someday be called. We did not know the legal language or the careful categorization of grief. We knew only the aching, a family without a daughter, a house that kept expecting a footfall that never came. And we knew in the marrow of every neighbor that something had stepped into our midst that had no business being there. At the time, I thought telling it would be enough, that saying her name, keeping her photo on the mantel, would be a kind of protection. But time buries and time hides. Years slipped by like leaves down a gutter, and the town learned to breathe again, though never the same. Tonight, though, looking at your name in the comments, your city, your country, I feel less alone as I tell it. That is why I speak. That is why I hold her picture to the light and say her name once more, Anna. None of us knew then that a single evening would take our innocence and leave behind a silence that would keep on finding new ears. When she vanished, it took the ordinary and turned it into a question, mark that hangs above our heads to this day. You don't forget the sound of mothers crying in the night. That summer of '69, the town turned into a choir of weeping. We were small, close-knit, everyone bound by church bells and market chatter. But when Anna vanished, grief came into every kitchen. It crept under door frames, sat down at supper tables, and whispered into cribs where babies slept. I was there when the sheriff first walked up to her family's porch. His hat was in his hand, sweat at the edge of his brow though the night was cool. He looked at Anna's father like he already knew the answer to questions he hadn't asked. "When did you last see her?" he said in that slow drawl, pen hovering above a small notebook. Her mother couldn't speak. She pressed the hem of her apron against her lips as if holding her breath would bring her daughter back. Her father swallowed hard. "She left here at 6, he muttered. Headed toward the lane, said she'd be back before supper. Said it like repetition could change reality. Like saying it again would open the door and let her walk back in. Neighbors crowded at the fence, their faces pale in the yellow porch light. Some pretended to whisper, but their voices carried. Maybe she ran off. Maybe a boy. Maybe she got herself in trouble. That word, trouble, clung to Anna's name like mud to a hem. I wanted to shout at them, to remind them she was 16, still a girl, not some reckless woman chasing shadows. But grief makes people cruel. Cruelty is easier to hold than fear. By morning, the town was searching. Farmers left fields half-plowed. Women pulled cardigans over nightgowns and marched down alleys calling her name. I remember the sound of dogs barking as they were led through ditches and thickets, their handlers swearing under their breath. Children watched from windows, eyes wide and confused. They had been told their town was safe. The riverbank was searched first. Men waded in, boots sinking into the mud, water up to their knees. No footprints, no clothing, one of them muttered. Another swore he saw drag marks near the reeds, but when we went closer, it was nothing more than shadows. For days the search spread. Fields, barns, even old wells no one had touched in years. Flyers with Anna's face were tacked onto telephone poles. her smile staring down every passerby. I carried one in my handbag, folded small, as if keeping her image close would stop the ache inside me. But here's the thing the sheriff never said out loud. The trail was cold from the beginning. No witness saw her after she stepped onto Maple Lane. No car was remembered with certainty. No stranger was described with clarity. She had been here, and then she was gone. The rumors thickened. Some swore she had been seen climbing into a pickup with an out-of-town plate. Others whispered she had been pregnant, running to hide the shame. The cruelest said she had wanted to disappear. Every version blamed her more than whoever had taken her. I still remember her friend Ruth's face when she overheard those whispers. Ruth clenched her fists, tears brimming, and spat out, "Anna wouldn't leave without telling me. She wouldn't just vanish. Somebody made her." That night I held Ruth as she sobbed into my shoulder, her small body shaking. Children aren't meant to learn so soon how vicious the world can be. What gnawed at me most was the silence. Silence where her laughter had been. Silence in the corner booth at the diner where she always sat. Silence on Sundays when her voice no longer joined the hymns. Silence like an invisible hand squeezing the life out of us. Weeks passed, and the sheriff's visits grew fewer. The flyers turned yellow at the edges. People stopped gathering in groups to search. A neighbor would sigh and say, "Time heals." But it didn't. Time didn't heal. Time betrayed. Because here's the confession. I never spoke to anyone, even to God in those first years. I saw her. I swear I did. 2 weeks after she vanished, I was walking home from the store, paper sack in my arms, when I caught sight of a figure at the far edge of town. It was dusk, shadows long, the air heavy with the smell of cut grass. The figure was standing near the railroad tracks, a girl with dark hair falling loose around her shoulders. She wore a dress that looked like Anna's Sunday best, the pale one with the collar. I called out, "Anna!" My voice cracked the air like glass breaking. The girl turned. For a heartbeat, her eyes met mine, wide, frightened, almost pleading. And then a man's hand reached out from the shadows and pulled her back. The figure vanished into the trees. By the time I reached the tracks, there was nothing but silence, the kind that eats at your soul. I told myself it might have been my imagination. The sheriff didn't believe me. "Grief plays tricks," he said gently, writing nothing in his notebook. But in my heart I knew. Anna had been alive. Someone had her. That image has lived inside me for 50 years. The eyes, the hand, the vanishing. And that is why I speak tonight. Not because time has healed me. It hasn't. Not because justice was done. It wasn't. I speak because when I close my eyes, I still hear her voice calling faintly, asking us not to forget. Tell me, if you were her mother, her father, her friend, would you be able to forget? When a town grows desperate, suspicion becomes a second language. By the 3rd week after Anna vanished, every whisper was an accusation, every sideways glance a silent trial. People who had once shared bread and hymns now eyed each other across fences like strangers. The sheriff, though steady in his posture, began looking more worn. He knocked on doors from dawn to dusk, his notebook filling with names, sightings, rumors. But behind each scribbled line was the same truth. No proof. Still, some names never left our lips. The first was James Jimmy Harlow. He was 19 then, a mechanic's son with grease-stained hands and a smile that unsettled more than it charmed. Folks said he had been seen loitering near Maple Lane the night Anna disappeared, leaning against a pickup, smoking slow. He told the sheriff he was fixing a carburetor in his father's garage, alone. No witnesses. His eyes darted too quick, his answers too sharp, but without evidence. The law could not bite. Mothers began pulling their daughters away when Jimmy walked by, and he stopped showing up to Sunday service. The second name was darker, heavier. Mr. Carver, the shopkeeper, an older man, close to 60, with a limp in his step and a shadow in his gaze. He had been known for generosity when it suited him, slipping candy to children, offering discounts to widows. But there were murmurs that his kindness lingered too long, that his hand brushed too close when he handed change. Some whispered that Anna had confided in a friend once, that Carver's eyes had made her uncomfortable. The sheriff questioned him, of course. Carver laughed, slow and hollow, said he was closing shop at the very hour Anna disappeared. No one could prove otherwise. He leaned on his cane, shook his head, and sighed like the world had wronged him. Yet even after the questions stopped, mothers tightened their grip on their children when they passed his store. And then there was the third, the one no one dared speak too loud, a stranger. A car with out-of-town plates had been seen near the railroad crossing that week. Dark blue with a dented fender. A farmer swore he saw it parked near the edge of the woods on the night Anna vanished. But the memory was blurred by time, by distance, by fear. A stranger is always the safest suspect, isn't it? Blame the outsider and sleep easier. Telling yourself evil doesn't grow in your own soil. But I never believed it was just a stranger. Evil doesn't need to travel far. Sometimes it wears the face you see every day. The more the weeks dragged on, the more the town itself began to crack. Friendships unraveled. Old debts were whispered about, grudges resurfaced. Each man with a temper, each woman with a secret, each youth with a restless spirit, all became suspects in someone's eyes. And yet, amid all the suspicion, the one image that haunted me wasn't tied to rumor. It was my own memory, that figure at the railroad, those frightened eyes, that hand pulling her back. I knew, someone among us carried that secret, breathing our air, walking our streets. While Anna's voice was smothered. Years later, some folks would say, we did what we could. We tried. But I ask you, did we? Did we really? Or did we hide behind gossip and fear, too afraid to drag the truth into the light? Because if Jimmy knew more, if Carver was darker than he let on, if the stranger wasn't so strange at all, then our silence was the rope that tied Anna's hands. That thought alone kept me awake at night. Still does. You can bury a body. You can even bury a secret. But you cannot bury the silence that lingers after. After Anna vanished, silence became the true master of our town. It sat in pews at church. It hovered in kitchens. It crept into beds where husbands and wives once spoke freely. Even laughter from children in the schoolyard carried a shadow, a quick glance over the shoulder, a tightening of the chest. Families began locking doors earlier. Curtains were drawn before the sun had fully set. Children who once rode bikes down Maple Lane until fireflies came out were now called home before the sky even turned pink. And when they asked why, their mothers said only, "Because I said so." How do you explain to a child that a girl just like them was swallowed? By the night, marriages strained. I remember one woman, Clara, who accused her husband of knowing more than he told. He worked late shifts at the mill, and she claimed he came home with dirt on his boots the morning after Anna disappeared. He swore it was nothing, just a night of extra hours, but the seed was planted. Trust that takes years to build can be shattered in a single whispered doubt. They sat apart at church the following Sunday, and within a year, Clara left him. Faith, too, took a blow. Reverend Thompson tried, he tried, to steady us. His sermons turned fiery, full of talk about God's justice and hidden sins. But behind his booming voice, there was a tremble. I could see it in his hands when he lifted the Bible, for if God could watch over sparrows, how had he let Anna slip away? Parents nodded along, but fewer children memorized their verses. Hymns sounded thinner. Belief does not die all at once. It withers, petal by petal, until only the stem remains. And the children, Lord, the children, they became shadows of themselves. My own daughter, Ruthie, once so lively, began sleeping with the light on. She told me she dreamed of Anna calling out from a dark place, begging her to follow. She said Anna's hair was tangled with leaves, her dress torn, her voice breaking. I held her close, but I had no words to soothe her. How do you tell your child that dreams may hold more truth than daylight ever dares show? Rumors filled the spaces where facts could not reach. Some said Anna had run away, lured by promises of city lights and freedom. Others insisted she had been taken by someone close, someone who still walked among us. Every missing cow, every broken window, every lost trinket became tied to her disappearance, as if evil had seeped into the soil itself. Even the sheriff, a man once respected, became a target. Folks whispered he knew who did it, but chose silence to protect a friend or a brother or himself. His shoulders slumped lower each day, his hair grayed faster than time should allow. Within 3 years, he left his badge on the desk and never wore it again. What I remember most was how Anna's mother changed. She stopped hanging laundry on the line. She stopped baking pies for the church socials. She sat by the window day after day staring at the road, as if Anna might still come walking home, a little older, a little thinner but alive. Hope is cruel like that. It keeps you breathing when your soul is already buried. This was no longer just about a missing girl. It was about a town rotting from the inside out. Trust became brittle. Faith became hollow. Even the air seemed heavier. And all the while, the truth sat somewhere, in someone's mouth, behind someone's eyes, waiting to be spoken. But no one spoke. And that silence, it still screams. The longer Anna stayed gone, the heavier the air grew in our little town. It was like we were all living in a jar with the lid screwed tight, gasping for breath but unable to open it. Every neighbor became a suspect. Every silence became an accusation. Every kindness was questioned. I remember one afternoon, sitting in the corner booth of Miller's Diner. The sheriff had stopped in for coffee, same as always. But the room went stiff. No one spoke above a whisper. Folks stared at their plates, stabbing their forks into eggs they didn't taste. Then old Mr. Jenkins leaned toward his wife and muttered, "He knows something. He just won't say." The sheriff's hand froze mid-stir, spoon clinking against porcelain. He looked around the room, eyes dark, like he wanted to scream but couldn't. He left his coffee untouched. The town wasn't just suspicious of the law, we were suspicious of each other. There was the baker, Mrs. Hartwell, who baked Anna's favorite cherry pies. After Anna disappeared, she burned batch after batch, her hands shaking too much to measure sugar. One day, she dropped a pie on the floor and broke down sobbing in front of everyone. People said her tears weren't about grief. They said she knew something, that maybe Anna had confided in her. Maybe Mrs. Hartwell knew where she went that night. Maybe she had held the secret too tight until it spoiled inside her. Then there was the Johnson boy, Michael, only 17. He had a crush on Anna, everyone knew it. They walked home together after choir practice sometimes. After she went missing, he stopped eating, stopped smiling. His mother swore he stayed in his room that night, but folks wondered, had he walked her home that final evening? Did his affection turn sour when she refused him? I once saw him sitting alone by the railroad tracks, face in his hands, and the thought crept into my mind. Is that guilt or grief? And we can't forget the strange knockings. Some nights, weeks after Anna vanished, families reported hearing taps on their windows, 3 sharp raps, like knuckles on glass. When they looked outside, no one was there. The children whispered that it was Anna trying to come home. But the grown-ups? We suspected someone was testing doors, circling houses, looking for the next girl. Fear spread like wildfire. The church wasn't safe from suspicion either. Reverend Thompson's sermons grew harder, angrier. He thundered about sin, about punishment, about wolves hiding in sheep's clothing. At first, we thought he was comforting us. But then the whispers started. Why was he so invested? Why did his voice crack when he mentioned innocence? Did he know something from the confessional that he wouldn't reveal? He carried a Bible in one hand. But some of us started to wonder what he carried in the other. It was like a sickness crawling through every home. Husbands accused wives of hiding secrets. Wives accused husbands of wandering late at night. Children accused parents of lying. And underneath it all was that gnawing question no one dared speak aloud. What if it was someone we love? What if the monster isn't outside, but sitting at our very own table? I tell you, suspicion is worse than disease. It doesn't kill quickly. It eats slow, like termites in the beams of a house. You don't notice the collapse until you're already buried in it. And buried we were. Because while we tore each other apart with blame and doubt, Anna remained gone. And the one who knew the truth, whether it was Jimmy, Carver, Michael, or some shadow we never named, walked among us, breathing our air, wearing our smiles, passing bread across tables. That thought never left me. Not then, not now. And it still keeps me awake at night. I have lived long, my children, longer than most of my neighbors, longer than the fathers and mothers who once filled our little Ohio town with laughter. But time, I have learned, is not a healer. It is only a thief. And when it takes what you love most, it does not return it. It only leaves shadows. It has been 56 years since Anna disappeared. 56 winters, 56 harvests, 56 birthdays never celebrated. And still, when I walk past the old schoolyard, I hear her laughter like bells. When I sit on my porch at dusk, I see her shadow drifting along Maple Lane. 16 forever, never aging, never returning. Anna, oh Anna, some of you watching this might be thousands of miles away. Some in cities full of light, some in quiet villages, some in countries I will never see. But I ask you, tell me in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? Because every time I read it, I feel less alone. Every time you type those words, I feel Anna's story is not trapped in our silence anymore. It is carried on the wind, across oceans, across generations. The sheriff once told us, no stone was left unturned, but I know that was not true. Because years later, a boy found a single shoe in the woods, a scuffed white sneaker, the kind Anna wore. It was half buried under leaves, near the creek. The sheriff dismissed it. Could be anyone's. But deep in my bones, I knew. I still do. Then there was the diary. Her mother found it hidden under the floorboard when the house was being remodeled. Pages filled with sketches of flowers, poems about dreams. And one entry, written just weeks before she vanished. Sometimes I feel like someone is watching me when I walk home. I don't tell Mama because she will only worry. But I see the same car on Maple Lane, parked too long. I hope it is nothing. I hope I am wrong. Nothing. Wrong. If only someone had listened. And then the letters. Oh, the letters. 3 of them. Delivered to her house the month after she vanished. No return address, postmarked from towns an hour away. They were never opened. Her father threw them into a drawer, too broken to bear the sight. Years later, when they were finally opened, they contained only single sentences. You will never see her again. She belongs to the silence now. Stop searching. No fingerprints, no clues, only terror. Some say it was a stranger, a drifter passing through. But I have lived here long enough to know evil rarely comes from strangers. It hides in the faces we trust. There was Mr. Harlan, the neighbor with the red truck. He often gave Anna rides home when it rained. No one questioned it then. It was the kindness of a neighbor. But after she vanished, people whispered. He moved away 2 years later. Never said goodbye. His name was never cleared, nor proven guilty. There was also talk of a teacher, kind to the boys, distant to the girls. His basement locked, always locked. They say the police searched, but how deeply? No one knows. And then the whispers of darker things. Of rituals in the woods. Of symbols carved into trees near where the shoe was found. The church denied it. The sheriff scoffed at it. But mothers, oh mothers, they knew. They kept their daughters inside at night. They prayed harder at bedtime. The worst part was not just losing Anna. It was what came after. Her mother never laughed again. She would hang laundry outside and stare at the road, as if any moment Anna might walk back. Her father drowned in whiskey. Her younger brother grew up quiet, angry, a man who trusted no one. And the children of our town? They grew up with fear in their blood. They learned early that evil was not a story, not a ghost, not a lesson in church. It was real. It could take someone as bright as Anna and erase her like chalk from a board. I sometimes wonder what life would be if Anna had lived. She would be 72 today. Maybe she would be a grandmother like me. Maybe she would bake cookies, plant roses, tell bedtime stories. Maybe she would be sitting here, speaking into the silence instead of me. Do you see the cruelty? It was not only her life stolen. It was every life she could have touched. Questions for you, my listeners. So now I turn to you, the ones carrying this story with me. Do you think it was someone Anna trusted? Or a stranger passing through? If it was the neighbor, why was he never questioned deeply? Or what do you make of the diary entry, the car, the feeling of being watched? And those letters? Who sent them? Why taunt a grieving family? Write your thoughts below. I will read every single one, because your words matter. They prove Anna is not forgotten. Say her name with me. I ask you, wherever you are watching from, type these words in the comments. Anna, you are not forgotten. Maggie, you are strong for telling her story. Because when hundreds, thousands of people write her name, it is no longer just an echo in one old woman's house. It becomes a chorus across the world. This is why I share these stories. This is why Voiceless Grandmas TV exists. so that no girl, no child, no story is ever buried in silence again. If Anna's story touched you, subscribe. Not for me, but for her. Because silence is where evil hides. But when we speak, when we remember, evil has nowhere left to run. So tonight, wherever you are, whisper her name, Anna, and let her echo live on.